Hi, welcome to Tea Time with Amy and Bev. Good day, my friend.
Good day.
I
How are you doing?
feel like I'm taking a breath of fresh air.
Nice.
It's all good. And you, are you announcing your celebration?
My new grandbaby.
Yeah.
I haven't even figured out how many hours I was awake because I was awake for a few days with only like maybe an hour and a half of sleep in between. So your body doesn't function as well when you want to do that stuff. But now my grandson arrived on Thursday at 6:21 in the morning.
Hey.
So it was a long night, and they kept telling me, well, Mom, you could go to sleep. And I'm like, no, because, this is our second baby. Anything could happen so fast. So it's so amazing. So Mr. Huxley James was born at 6:21 on 9:21.
Wow,
So it's kind of crazy.
that's
It's kind of
awesome.
crazy how times have changed so much because when I had kids and probably when you had kids, they make such a fuss about some things because they were ups. Her doctor was a little peeved that the doctor that she had seen the week before he had seen her allowed her to go without doing certain things because they say that once you go over due date, once you go over that 40 weeks, your placenta starts to deteriorate, it starts to degrade. So that means the baby's not getting what it needs, and then you're looking at potential problems down the road. So it was kind of made like a big deal for this to all happen kind of how it happened. I mean, she went in for an appointment that morning at 10:45 thinking nothing. And then they talked about doing the induction the following morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. And then it turned out to be that afternoon at 4:30. He's like, nope, we want to get this. We want to do it now. So, and besides, he was going on vacation. So it just kind of worked out pretty amazing. When you set your intentions and when you get to know people, it's phenomenal. Because I have met a lot of the nurses at the gym where I go to, a couple of the nurses that are there, the top dogs, right, for OBGYN. And it's like they were phenomenal. It's like without them, they made the difference, even to the point where the following morning, one of the gifts that they had given her was a onesie that had his name, date of birth, the time he was born, how much he weighed, like all this stuff was all printed out on the front of it. Just freaking amazing, right? It just blows my mind. But that's the kind of when we set ourselves up for things like that, and not with the expectation that those things would happen, but just going in and just being positive and knowing things were going to work out for the greatest good, and asking for the angels to surround and uplift. And I'm telling Freeman, I'm like, I'm going to call in like 10,000 angels. And he's like, why are you going to make the room so crowded? I'm like, nobody's gonna know. Nobody's gonna know, but it just keeps it the space, right? So it's just all those thoughts that we create because in my past, and not to say that I didn't have worries and concerns, because if the heartbeat started to change a little bit, I'd get a little bit more alert to it. Or if mama was hurting, I get a little bit more alert to it and just kept calling in, whatever I could do at that time to help her and and to help me because she was doing great, honestly. So it was just a wonderful experience. Dad was there. It was just to witness the love between the two of them, and to be in that space where I start to cry and I look over at Dad, and Dad's like, his eyes are all teared up and we're both kind of crying. Then he goes to cut the cord, all this stuff, because this is their second baby. So it's like, it was a pretty amazing to be in that space. It really was. And it carries on.
That's cool.
It's so amazing. And he's such a peaceful, just peace. This baby's peace. He really is.
So it'd be interesting to see how the energy of him comes in and affects everybody around.
Yeah,
Affects the
true.
environment, affects his older brother, the connection.
And such opportunities. There was Dad and I had lots of deep conversations about a lot of stuff, like some of his experiences in his life that he just kind of, I didn't ask questions. It was a comfortable, safe environment, right, to have these conversations. And I'm just I'm blown away by humanity these days. It makes me want to cry emotionally, but because it feels good. But there's a shift, such a shift going on. And of course, it's wherever you direct your attention. And I've listened to this lady this morning, and she is channeling, and she's talking about how we we ourselves that are going through a spiritual shift and we're on this higher vibration, I could say it like that, I suppose. And when we see ourselves different or separate from someone else that hasn't gone through that path, we are creating separation at that moment. And it's not to create that separation at all. It's just to be there in that space of love, which we've been talking about. It's just being that love space where we're not seeing where somebody's at or where they're not at. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where we can still have conversations with them. And this has been a growth process, because for me, it was like I couldn't be around people that were low vibing for a long time. And sometimes that can feel that way. But when I start gaining these different perspectives, it helps to lift me up. And it's almost like those labels that I've kind of laid upon my shoulders have been lifted. I don't have to think that way or feel that way. Because when you think about it, when you have that, it's almost, what words come to my head is almost like an agenda of an expectation of how everyone should be on this journey. Or they're not, why can't they just freaking shift up? It'll make things so much better. Well, if we're the ones that are shifting, we have to make it better by acknowledging that they're perfect just the where they're at right now. And that we're not better than another and they're not better than us. However we perceive things, just like, I can go into the politics of things, but I think just saying that out loud kind of gives people a general idea where there's that separation, and it's to love each other regardless of what our opinions and thoughts are. Of course, it's everything has its purpose, because there's growth to come from everything. There's always all this amazing growth, and I've witnessed it. I've witnessed it with the losses that I've had in my life. I've witnessed it, you helping be supportive with people that are losing people around you. I've witnessed it after other people have lost their kids and other things, and how they've shifted and changed and grown so much. And sometimes we don't grow without those kind of things that happen in our life. So it's just, I'm blown away these days. That's all.
Well, I just had a pretty lengthy conversation with somebody yesterday who said they think they're experiencing premenopause, but she's been super emotional lately and just not wanting to people. And I told her, I said, listen, how long have we been talking about the Aquarian age? We know that's a major shift, and we have entered it. And she mentioned to me about the feminine energy. And I said, yes. If you think about how many teachers and people are out shifting from their old way of being into the healing, the natural, the power of our bodies, the power of our mind, believing in that, shifting to it, utilizing it more. You have all these podcasts, you have all these YouTube channels, you have all these people, like thousands, if not millions of people, talking about spirituality, the power that we have within us to tap into, reincarnation, near-death experience, like all of that. And more people are leaning into that space of love and compassion instead of staying in the stuckness of the anger and all the lower vibrational energies, the emotions. I said, you have all these people. I said, it takes one person. So it took one person to give Bev the idea of doing this podcast. And it took Bev, one person, to say yes. Now we have two people, and those two people have grown to how many people are watching, and those people who are implementing what they're learning and growing and changing and shifting and affecting the people in their environments, home, work, their business, in the line at the grocery store, wherever they go, they're affecting people. So this collective feminine energy is getting stronger. And I believe I mentioned it before in a different podcast about, we have been in the masculine energy for decades, right? Centuries. We've been in masculine energy because we needed to survive. And that has shifted. And we recognize we don't have to stay in that masculine energy, but to bring harmony to the sides of masculine and feminine. And that feminine side is our intuition. First and foremost, we're learning what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what feels truth to our own being and what doesn't. we can tell when people are lying and when they are telling the truth. And the self-care, the self-nurturing, taking care of our mental wellness, taking care of our emotional state, taking care of our bodies in a different way, not completely relying on the medical and pharmaceutical industry, but utilizing them as a tool. This is what I do. I utilize them as a tool, my doctors, to help me know where I'm at with myself, so then I can make the changes so my body can feel better. So people are shifting that, and that is shifting into raising, I'm not saying shifting into the feminine energy, but raising the feminine energy. And then feminine energy is emotional. So now when we incorporate that, people are starting to feel that love, feel that compassion, feel that energetic shift, and it's allowing the deep buried emotions that they've been hanging on to surface, and they're being emotionally sensitive and crying, but not knowing why. And I'm like, listen, it's a release, and you don't need to understand it. Just let it happen. Just let it happen. If you're feeling that need to cry, then freaking cry, because something is being released from your body. And it's funny that I say that, because this morning I was listening to a segment of the Agape Spiritual Center with Michael Bernard Beckwith. And he goes, you take a piece of paper, because he's talking about releasing and letting go. He says, you take a piece of paper. I don't need to take this piece of paper and put it on the ground. I don't need to do that. What do I need to do? I need to let it go. And it falls. It's gravity. You open up and release it, right? So that's what I feel like, that emotional sensitivity that's being felt is that opportunity to open up, let go, release it, so that some healing can take place within the self. And so I'm excited about it. I think it's amazing. I think it's wonderful. I think it's a blessing. I think it's a miracle. And I feel like, I mean, the more people that are doing this, just crying and releasing, and not they don't even need to understand it, but the fact that they're doing it is contributing to that shift, that energetic vibrational shift. And I'm like, I'm like, cry. But at the same time, it's important to have some sort of community. So whether you're watching us every week and you implementing what we talk about and what you're learning from us, whether you're going to Bev's meetup, whether you're, watching Agape Spiritual Center, and Michael Bernard Beckwith, have some sort of community where you feel like you're having that support. I have Bev's meetup. I have this that we do every week. And then I'm involved in 2 mastermind groups, because I need that to feed my spirit, to feed my soul, to feed my mind, to help me stay grounded within my belief system and help me stay focused on what feels good. So in those groups, we also talk about what are our struggles, and we are solution oriented. We get feedback about how to shift a mindset shift, different perspective, so that we can keep moving forward instead of staying stuck in the muck and guck and stirring in it. And then that lowers our vibration. And then we wonder why we're attracting what we're attracting, that make life seems like it sucks. We want to move out of that. So get connected to some sort of a community or teacher or something that you can stay consistent with to help you do your releasing, help you feel better, help you change your perspective about life. To me, and I have come to realize, because I'm and Bev too, we grew up when we were independent people, and we had to figure it out on our own, and we had to survive on our own, and we had to take care of things. Well, I have since I am older and wiser now, I know you need a support group. You have to have a support group. And you think about addicts who want to stop using drugs. There's Narcotics Anonymous, there's Alcohol Anonymous. There are support groups for you to stay on track to help you heal and shift. So why wouldn't you do that for your spiritual side? Why wouldn't you have that support team to help you move forward instead of stay stuck?
It's true. You're talking about the just back to the emotions and stuff like that, because the last couple of weeks I've had lots of bouts where I just will cry and cry and cry. And it's not like, it's just like you said, it's just a release. I don't have to identify where it's coming from. And sometimes I feel like it's easier for us to do the crying because we can handle it, and some people can't release that stuff yet. So if you think about it, you're collectively, when you're having those releases and you can't identify, you're collectively releasing for people. It's not a bad thing. And we're releasing for ourselves too. But again, it's like that whole conversation that we had earlier on in the conversation. It's just seeing things separate. We are all so connected. We're interconnected. And when we start recognizing that, whether you do or not, but when you start recognizing it, you start seeing that things are a little bit more simpler than you thought they were. And it's so beneficial. You talk about the meetup, you talk about having the support. So I have there's so many amazing people that are coming from this meetup group. It blows my mind. But I have one of my friends, and she sent me this video over. She's like, I don't know if you've watched this yet. It was from Alex Ferrari, and her name was Ann Turner, maybe. I don't remember her last name because I'm listening to it again this morning. And she says, I feel like there's a lot of parallels with you and this person. So I start listening to it yesterday before I'm going to the group. And I hear she's talking about, she sends out this email to all of her friends, let's get together. And she was doing like self-help. She wasn't even putting it geared towards spirituality or anything like that. And she said, nobody responded. None of her friends, like nobody responded. So then she found, which I heard it one way yesterday, and now I heard it the other way today. She created this meetup group. And I thought, what the hell? Because why would I have put the group on there? Because at first it was like just a spiritual meetup group, right? That's what I would refer to it as. But I just put on the calendar a meetup group, not knowing anything else beyond that. And then I listened to it again today, and it wasn't just that she called it a meetup group. There's actually an app for meetup. It's a meetup group app, which I start exploring today because I'm going to put it on there for like-minded people to come in. And she said she started out with a handful of people, and she said she'd done this monthly, and she said she's up to 1,500 people, and she would fly back to this area to meet up with all these people each time. So because that's how the group built, how it was created. And then she had another group that she would stay with these people for 6 months at a time. And then once they would leave off the group, and then other people would come on. She said the people never left. And she said, I built these huge relationships. So having these people in your life, they really do help. So she sent me that information, which was a confirmation to me yesterday that I know that I'm on the right path. This is right. And then it doesn't matter the quantity. I say that so far, but I think there's a fear in me that it could get too big. And then I hear her 1,500, and I'm thinking, how does she operate it that way? So it's like, now I have an opportunity to look and see how someone else is doing something. And I haven't looked into her that much, but there's so much there. And then one of the girls that were there, she says, I watch you and Amy on Tea Time all the time. And she says, you guys were talking about the meetup group. And she says, I want to be a part of that group. Nobody told me about it, or, whatever about it. And so I had invited her, and she had shown up this past Saturday. And she's like, you could just mention it on your Amy and Bev, hey, if you're interested, hit us up or whatever, come on in. And I don't have restrictions about who's going to show up and who doesn't show up, because I feel like spirit always guides it anyways. We have the best intentions going into it, and there's always the learning opportunity while we're in that space. It's just amazing. And then to receive the information like afterwards, like that was such a great group, it's such an awesome thing. I'm so glad you're doing this, and for it to be beneficial, and it just blows my mind. And another girl that I hadn't invited before, but I had thought about inviting her numerous times. And then all of a sudden we were talking because she had just gone through some experience. I told her, I said, hey, I have this group. And then we're in the class, and it's because you can be comfortable. It's just like you and I, we're able to talk to each other without having like an agenda with it, but we're open, and it's a safe place, and you can be vulnerable in the space. And she even looked over and she said, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, how come I haven't been to this group? How come this is the first time hearing about it, right? And she says, and then she answers herself, because I wasn't ready.
Right.
I wasn't ready for it. And because she was going to other groups, she's gone through addictions and stuff like that. So she's been going to those groups, and all of a sudden those groups aren't holding it for her. And she'd already stopped that group just before I had sent her this information for this group. So now one group just left for her to come into another group so we meet a couple of times a month, and she really, really enjoyed it. And so that's the awesome thing, that people can, and I wasn't sure, because, you know, some people that we like to hold things within ourselves and not share that stuff. But then she was quiet for the majority of the class, and then opened up at the end of the class, like just started sharing all this stuff. And it was just phenomenal, because it's a safe place. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be just at my space, but it's just an opportunity for each person to reach out and start creating spaces. Like when you're having those conversations with someone and it feels like a great conversation, you know, say something to them. Synchronicities, like synchronicities. This one of the gals that was there, she had lost her son. She didn't lose him. He transitioned. It'll be 2 years next month in October. And she said that she had gone on a vacation recently, and they had, I hopefully don't mess the story up, but she was like, their dog, they were at the beach and the dog had ran off, and it was her son's dog. And she's yelling for Farah to come back or whatever. And then this girl thought her name was Sarah, and she thought that she was calling her name. So they end up having this conversation. And she said immediately she heard this information, like, tell them about my death, or what, tell them about about me. And she's like, you know, arguing with herself in her head, like, no, I talk about this way too much. Like, I'm not gonna, she's ignoring it, right? And then they start having, I don't know if they had the conversation right then, or if they're like, oh, hi, and, you know, and then they went their separate ways. Well, they ran into each other again, because spirit is amazing. So they run into each other again, and one of them's talking, you know, talking about, she says, oh, my son had died 3 years ago in a motorcycle accident, and he was 21. And she says, oh, my son had transitioned, and it'll be 2 years in October. And when Tyler, you know, she said Tyler, and she says, the girl says, what? And she says, yeah, Tyler. And she says, my son's name was Tyler. And it's like, how amazing is it? And then for her to even recognize the lady that was here in the group, for her to even recognize how amazing spirit is, and to know that the sons got together and that's how they were able to communicate, because it's those confirmations, those synchronicities that kind of feed our soul and keep us going and moving forward. So it's like so much phenomenal stuff to sit back and to bear witness to. But that's the world. And the more that we sit back and bear witness to that, and appreciate how people can be so vulnerable and share their stories, and be in this place that it's so phenomenal, that we don't get to see on a regular basis, and knowing that we all grieve in different ways and we see things in different ways. And it's just such a beautiful place, that it's a creating, it's a ground where we can create whatever we want to create, right? We're in a space of creating abundance and beauty and appreciation and synchronicities. And then even in being in the group and then listening, one girl's talking about that. The other girl keeps acknowledging that the other girl has pink shoes on, pink this, because she just got a pink hummingbird feeder, and she's just all jazzed about it because it brings the pink in the house, because the sun reflects on it. And she's like, and you've got pink shoes on, and you've got a pink shirt. And then we blah, 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 talk some more. And then she looks over, oh, and you have a pink notebook. And then she starts talking about how she came about receiving this notebook, and how she had found it. It was basically had been discarded. So she cleaned it up, and it was barely even used. And it had this saying on the front of it. And then she starts reading the saying. And then the girl across the room is like, that's from Proverbs or whatever. And she's like, then she goes on to explain exactly what it means to the other girl. And it's like, it was just amazing, the synchronicities that happen in our lives. But if you don't have an awareness of it, if you're not taking the time to slow down and appreciate the things around you, then you miss out. And believe me, after Huxley was born, I came home and tried to nap, and I kind of dozed for a little bit, and I wanted to get back because I wanted to pick up Colton from school, take him to the hospital so he can see his new brother. And then I thought, well, I'm going to stay at my kid's house, and I'll bring Colton, and he can stay with me at their house. So he's at home, it's where it's relaxing and stuff like that, for when mom and dad come home the next day with their baby brother. And so we cleaned, right? So I kept myself so busy that I didn't do anything. And then once I sat still, I recognized my neck was hurting. There was other things, I was exhausted. There was other things that were going on, but I kept pushing it off and ignoring it. That's what happens. That's the extreme of being, I had good intentions, but I wasn't listening to my body at all. And when we get so busy, we don't hear the messages that are coming in, even from our own physical body. Like, I wasn't even recognizing. And as soon as I had that chance to take a breath and sit still, I noticed that I wasn't feeling 100%. So this has been such a learning journey for me.
I mean, when you said, how come I didn't come to that? How come I haven't heard about this meeting? Absolutely has 100% to do with divine timing and being ready.
Yes.
And being ready, because I was around somebody a week ago, sitting with them, a small handful of people. And when I get into groups, I'm very observant. I've been like that my entire life. That's what being an introvert does for you, is you can sit and listen, right? And because of my coaching and my training and stuff, I'm very aware of people's emotions and words. And so I just sat and I listened to the conversations. They weren't uplifting by no means. They were more complaining and, what's wrong. So I sat and listened, and it was very quiet. And then a day or two later, I saw one of the ladies who was participating in the conversation. And I said, I'm an emotional resiliency coach. And she goes, as I was sitting there talking, I remembered that. And I was thinking to myself, oh, this lady's probably dissecting me. And I assured her, I said, listen, I don't judge people. I observe, I listen. And it allows me to be able to help people. So I have things that I could share with you that could help you. I said, I totally believe in energy. Everything's energy. And she just popped up and she's like, oh my God, I do too. I said, great. You already have that knowledge. So I feel like I could help you in having a different perspective and mindset shift. If you are willing, stop by my office. We'll have a conversation. And her immediate response was, oh yeah, when I have a minute. And, because she's busy, she's got a lot of stuff on her plate. Well, here's the thing. First of all, divine timing. I offered it to her. I did my part. Her part is to say yes. Her part is to recognize what she's doing is not working or doesn't feel good. And so it's up to her to choose to have that conversation with me or somebody else. She might resonate with somebody else who might be able to share that similar information with her to help her shift and change and grow. I did my part. And it's not for me every time I see her to say, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? No. Spirit, I know strongly, spirit, somebody in the spirit world, spirit guide, angels, God, the ascended master, a loved one that's transitioned, something is going to guide her into us having a conversation, because at that moment is when she will be ready. I've planted the seed. That was my job. And this is what people think about me, is that I'm sitting there judging them because of the way they talk or behave or whatever. No, I'm observant, which means what you're doing is helping me grow, not only with myself, but being able to recognize what you're doing or what you're saying, or being very tuned into your energy. That is helping me grow. I don't have no judgment. If that's where you want, I've been there. I know what that feels like, to be in that complaining space, that angry space, that full of shame and guilt space. I get that, and stirring in it and staying in it and wanting people to tell me that I was right and the perpetrator was wrong. I wanted all of that. So I shared that victim story in every way, shape, and form that I could to get that empathy and assurance that I was right. That didn't get me anywhere. That got me nowhere. What got me to move and change my vibrational frequency, which is contributing to the collective feminine energy shift, was doing my own mental and emotional healing. That's what made me change. And so when you're ready is when you will say, yes, yes, I want to attend Bev's meetup. Yes, I want to listen to Tea Time with Amy and Bev. Yes, I want to pay for coaching. Yes, I'm going to attend these classes. That's your job. That's, as the audience, that's your job, is to say, yes, I'm ready. Yes, I'm finally, it's time to make a change because what I'm doing is not working and it doesn't feel good.
100%. I agree. And it's always an opportunity when someone does come in and to talk to you, and then the information that flows through you, because there's tidbits that are for us too, that we're given that information, and it's for our growth. So you're 100% like right on from my perspective. That, I mean, that's from my perspective. I do believe that to be true too. It's just such an opportunity. And
Just,
early on, I wasn't recognizing that how the advice was beneficial for myself too.
yeah. And just on Saturday, you know, you've had this meetup for a few months now. And I'm not kidding you. I'm not exaggerating. I've thought, who could I invite? And I can tell you, nobody was coming to mind.
Gotcha.
On Saturday, well, this week, I invited 3 people. So there's that me feeling their energy of, are they not for me judging them of saying, oh, well, I don't know if they're ready. It wasn't that. It was that energetic connection of, is it time to plant the seed? But that was totally spirit guided. It wasn't me judging the situation or making that determination, quote unquote, determination of, oh, are they worthy of coming? Are they ready to come? That was not any part of my thought process. It was a gentleman showing up to my Reiki 1 and 2 class, and his desire to have and be around more like-minded people because he just moved here. Oh, let me invite them to the meetup. A lady that I saw on Saturday, we go have lunch and we're talking about metaphysics and her desire to be around like-minded people. Oh, let me invite you. On Saturday, the same day, having this conversation with the lady who's feeling the collective feminine energy shift and being emotional, but not having a support system. Oh, let me invite you to this meetup. It was that spirit guided, bringing us together, hearing those conversations, feeling that desire of something different. Oh, there's some place I know you could be that would be beneficial.
Yeah, same. So when you're saying that, you're kind of putting words to kind of how I've been doing things, because it's just like I'm looking for spirit's guidance, because initially the first time, if you remember, we talked about I'll send out a group text, right? Well, then I had gotten a couple of people who didn't like that group text, which I understand. That's not a problem. I don't have a problem with that at all. But also recognizing in that moment, I wasn't listening to myself, because I asked spirit, who should I invite? And so when I get that inclination, like with the most recent one, I had gotten it a couple times. It was kind of there, like it was almost like it was planting a seed in me, like spirit was planting that seed for me. And then recognizing, then all of a sudden I just knew. And then she tells me that she left the other group and how this is beneficial for her. And she talked about doing a sweat lodge and some other stuff. So it's like, there was such a huge benefit from it. And man, I just am blown away by the people, because it's like you were saying early on, everyone has all these, when you join these kind of groups or you create these kind of groups, it's got an energy of itself. It's got a body of its own. It just kind of flows and it moves, and it's so beneficial. I hear so much different perspectives on things, and it gives me an idea. Like for one of the things I said, because I was talking about my mom, and I'm like, I'm never going to do chemotherapy or radiation. And then one of the gals has gone through radiation and chemotherapy while she was in there, and she says, the whole time I felt like I was being guided towards this. She gave me a different perspective. So then I removed my limits on that space. And that's very freeing. It may be one thing at a time that I'm removing those limits on, but I'm able to witness it and see it and let it go. And also know I'm not going to limit. If something came into my experience that way, because before I'd always say, well, I'm only going to go naturopath. I'm going to go find spiritual healers. That's what I'm going to do. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if my body tells me that, hey, this to go do this, then to go do that, to go do it. And it's like she said, I never looked at it as putting poison into my body, because I didn't label it the way that other people have labeled it. And then recognizing, we hear stuff so much that we start saying the same things, recycling that information. And we haven't even checked in with ourselves. Does that resonate with us? That's where the goosebumps are lining up for me all the time. I had so much goosebumps this weekend. It was just ridiculous. I have them all the time when you and I have conversations. I look forward to those, but it's also recognizing what rings true to me. Am I recycling the information that I'm coming out? Because before I couldn't have even looked at any of this stuff. I didn't have the time to look at that kind of stuff. But now I'm looking at all of it and checking out my response and why did I say it like that? And then I'm realizing, I tell the group, I'm like, I'm learning just like all of you are. And so please don't ever take offense to what I'm saying. Because if I'm saying no to something like that, I said, if you hadn't spoke up and said what you had said, not that you were trying to sway me or shame me because I had a belief that wasn't your belief, that gave me a different perspective, which totally changed my perspective because there was no push. It was just a neutral conversation that she brought forward during this time frame. So it's like, it's just amazing, these opportunities that we can give ourselves. And it's each, like you said, you're planting a seed and you are a great coach. So now it's an opportunity for people to start flowing that direction towards you. But you've totally shifted. We've talked about this. Your energy has totally shifted as well. And I feel like I've been shifting too, because even for this group, I wasn't holding, I didn't try to chastise myself for any thoughts or things that I might have said during the group. I just kind of let it flow, and then I would check in. It was just totally different. And that's my gauge to let me know that I'm changing, that I'm not being affected by my old beliefs like I was. I'm more open and free with my thoughts, and then I'm open and listening to other perspectives because there's so much to gain from that. Because I don't know everything. There's no way that any of us can know anything, know everything. But we can tune into the collective consciousness, and even still sitting there in a group of people, we are the collective consciousness. I mean, we're part of it. So even having those conversations from that love space, it's just totally different. It's totally freeing. And then it reminds me of Esther Hicks, when we were listening to her, because she'd say, you don't have to go out and tell everybody what they need to do because it's been working for you. But when they turn around and say, gosh, Amy, you are just glowing these days. You're beaming. Your energy is so amazing. What are you doing differently? And it's like, then you can start bringing forward that information, because then that's the opportunity. And then they have an opportunity like, gosh, it's a choice, right? Do I want to be happy and glowing like Amy is right now? Or do I want to stay in the space where I can't even barely see the sun peeking through the water, that I'm so buried underneath, or I'm so underneath this water, I'm looking up and I can't even see barely to see the sun because I'm so deep into this. And it's like, we don't have to be in those spaces like that, but we can, and there's nothing wrong with it, because collectively you're still working through stuff too for the collective consciousness.
Yeah,
It's all for one,
for
one
sure.
for all for one.
Over the last week I was sitting next to a lady and she's telling me about her physical problems, and then she's telling me how she's seen this he wasn't Chinese, I think he was Japanese healer who did acupuncture, and he created healing teas. And he's in California, and so she's telling me all about that. And she's telling me how it was beneficial for her because she has back problems, and that the acupuncture was amazing. And she was just so surprised and shocked by how well it worked. And that, the practitioner suggested that she come back like 3 more visits, but he lives in California and she lives here, and it wasn't feasible for her. And so I'm listening to her. And so, of course, anytime somebody talks about their physical issues, my immediate thought is the emotional state. What are you hanging on to emotionally? What are you burying deep inside of your body, and having this stronghold of that's deteriorating or causing issues within your body? So that's where my head goes. And so she was talking about acupuncture and how amazing it was. And I said, oh, well, have you ever had Reiki done? She said, no, it's against my religion. Now, previously and earlier learning about this, because I think everybody should know about energy, and everybody should know about, or at least experience Reiki or some sort of energy work, right? And so earlier in my stages, I would have been offended. I would have been pissed. I would have had an attitude about it. But I just sat there, and with compassion, I'm like, okay, that's where she's at. It wasn't a time and space to have a conversation and ask questions as to what is it about your religion that's keeping you from understanding what Reiki or energy is? Wasn't the time. I know that, again, in divine timing, I will have that conversation with her, not to put her on the spot, but for me to have a more of an understanding. What is it about energy, and knowing about energy is against your religion? So any listeners, if this is something that you resonate with, please put it in the comments so I have some understanding. But I also know that, you know, each religion has their own way of putting it into words and how they see it. So I just want an understanding. I'm in that space of learning and growing as far as that topic goes, instead of pushing against it or resisting that idea. So I'm offering up to be open to learning, because I think that's so important. And when we learn about each other and understand each other, then again, that is shifting the feminine energy. It's bringing that vibration up instead of causing resistance or pushing against because you don't think the way I think. No, it's about understanding, because I mean, I would say she's in her late 50s, maybe early 60s. She has deep-seated beliefs and programming from her childhood, and she is doing what feels good to her. But I also, on the other side of that coin, I know she's not happy. She has a lot of physical issues. She got bad attitude. She is short-tempered, she's reactive instead of responsive, right? She don't take that. So
yeah. Overflowing cup. Like she's a cup that has so much in her that it's overflowing, and she can't filter it. But yeah. I mean, but it's a choice.
It's working for her. But from my perspective, I'm like, oh, it could be so much better. That's the way I see it. I'm like, okay, whatever's working right now, you might feel like it's working for you. But from my perspective, because I've done healing, because I understand a lot more about how we operate mentally and emotionally, and that spiritual connect, like seeing it from a different perspective, I'm like, but it could be so much better. It could be so much more amazing. It could be so much more freeing. It could be so much more joy. And that's what I desire for people, is to get on that other side of that area of, we know it doesn't feel good. Let's try something that does feel good. That's it. Like, I just want people to feel, I want people to feel gooder.
Gooder. You know, you're talking about her, I don't know who you're talking about, but then I feel like this anxiety, this energy in my solar plexus, like I've got to do something. I also feel like that some of the stuff that she's got right now dealing with is from a previous experience, a previous lifeline. And it's funny that you're talking about this, because during group, one of the ladies is a nurse. She was a hospice nurse too. And she said that she's a Reiki practitioner, and she also teaches Reiki. And she says, but in the hospital settings, I believe she called it care touch. She said that's where care touch came from, because it was frowned upon to say anything about Reiki. You couldn't talk about that because that was woo woo. But then care touch was the same exact thing, just a different title. So that was one thing. And it's interesting that you bring up acupuncture, because acupuncture has really been in my space, and I've been wanting to do it, and I haven't done it. And then finally, when I was driving to group yesterday, I'm listening to this lady. She brings up acupuncture. I get into the group. They start talking about acupuncture. And I'm like, hey, there's a gal that lives in Dolan that does acupuncture. And I said, I was so compelled to call or contact her. I was going to start texting while I was on the highway. And I'm like, no, I'll wait till I get to the office before I do this. And I contacted her yesterday afternoon to schedule an appointment, because along with acupuncture, it's working on your energy. It's no different from acupuncture, acupressure, and then going into Reiki, cranial sacral therapy. There's so many different things that shift the energy without so much of a doing, and it will open up things. So for me, I keep having, and I know that there's a block. I feel like there's a block at the back of my neck, and it's almost as if I have received a blow at some time in a lifeline at the back of my neck, and it decapitated my head. Like that was it. And it's really kind of been bothering me lately. And I know for me, my knowing is that this will free up that energy. It will open it up and release it. So then I can even go and have more Reiki. I can have more acupuncture to open up all that stuff, because it's not just that, it's another way to facilitate self. And how do we know? Listen, like if you keep getting guided, or you keep hearing over and over again about Reiki and acupuncture and all these different things, we know people, hey, contact us, let us, get in touch with us, or we'll find people, because they're out there. There's so many different people that are out there. And I have seen with my own eyes the benefits of Reiki. And I've also seen with my own eye, because when I was going through a Reiki class and not even knowing what the hell you're doing, even though it's intention, but I had a hand on one area of a low back while she's laying on her back, and I had a hand on a hip, and then her leg keeps kind of making this weird movement. And the instructor comes over and says, "You see what's going on here?" She said, "You're unwinding the hip." And then the lady said afterward that her hip felt great, like it never had felt so great. So witnessing that cranial sacral, I've had experience. Someone's doing a hold on your head. My jaw started chattering. I couldn't stop it. It kept kind of gnashing together, like over and over and over again. I tried to bite down and stop it, and it just kept doing it. So I let go and just let it until it stopped. I've seen the benefits of acupuncture. I've witnessed a person that I work on a regular basis, and I've seen how one side would be closed up, and I know why it was closed up, because energetically doing, right side was all open, wide, and the left side was all closed up and shortened. And it's because he was restricting all that stuff on this side, because he knew he's got all this doing to do before he can allow himself to step into this intuitive side and relaxing side. But then once he started taking the step towards doing the acupuncture, the energy work, then I started noticing a difference. It was completely laid out. I'm like, "What the hell did you do?" And he tells me, I'm like, wow, like it was amazing, because I got to witness it with my eyes. So I tell people this because there's so many ways I've experienced it, I've seen it, but that's been my experience. So the only way that you can have the experience is to go out and start trying these things out and see what works for you, because it is mind blowing. We have limited ourselves, and I'm not saying that doctors aren't great, because doctors are great. Hey, I had a doctor that was delivering my grandson. It was awesome, to see that energy and to be in that space and to have all that love and empathy, and just to be in that general feel of everything. It was just wonderful. There's so many benefits to everything, and it's getting past the ideas of, well, chemo's poison. You're putting poison in your body. Radiology is going to do this. And if you go in with an expectation that something bad's going to happen, something bad's probably going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then eventually it's going to, because you're telling the universe, I want more of this. This is what I want. This is what I'm thinking about. This is what I want in my experience. And it doesn't have to be that way. But it's learning. And how do we know? By coming together in groups, and we start recognizing the words that we're saying, like, I need to do this, or I should do this, or these kind of things. And it's not going out there and having someone constantly nitpicking on you, because I'm recognizing that people are self-correcting themselves. They're hearing themselves say the words they're saying in the group, and then they go in and correct it. And because I do it too, but it also is helping me recognize, what are my common conversations? What common words am I using on a regular basis that I don't realize how much I'm creating from that space? So it's just, I would never have had these experiences if I would have stayed that independent person that thought I had to do it all on my own, ever.
Or doing this, if you would have said, "No, I'm not interested."
Oh my God. And you had to talk, you had to wear me down to get me to do it. And I'm so grateful and thankful for that, because it helped me to open up. Gosh, even this group, and it was one of our mutual friends, because I had been thinking about, getting people together. And then she brought it up, and it was like, that was the nudge that I needed to set up the group. And it's like, it's been, for me personally, I've been growing each time. And that's phenomenal for me. I think I'm going to get the growth from a book or a podcast. And I'm not saying that I don't, because I do get it from all those places, but it's also getting it from the group like that. It's just amazing. So thank you. Because
Yeah. Well, thank
and
you
I'm
for
going to
saying
thank myself, because I took the chance to do it. You know what I mean?
for sure.
Yeah.
It was
Quite the
a
journey.
seed that was planted, and then there was patience, and there was nurturing, and then there was a yes, and here we are.
Here we are.
It's so good.
It's mind blowing. It's phenomenal. It's miraculous. There's so many different things you can say right? And it's talking about miracles. Expect miracles. I hear about all the time. Expect miracles because they're
Right.
happening all the time. Every breath we take is a miracle. You know,
Mm.
every just I don't know. I mean, I could probably go crazy with all that, but there's just a lot to be
Well,
grateful for.
I was listening to Next Level Soul this morning, and he was interviewing a gentleman who came from a religious background in a like a small town like in the Midwest East, across the Mississippi. Let me put it that way. And he said he didn't know anything different than what his upbringing provided him until he went into the military.
Oh,
So he goes into the military and having different conversations, getting different information. He was learning about energy and energy waves. He said that he knows now, because he had an NDE, near death experience. He knows now that his what he was learning about through the military with his career choice was grooming him and teaching him information for what was coming for his near-death experience. And he said, of course, after he had that, then he started looking into other information and even learning more about energy and spirit. And he said, he just started learning more about it, or having conversations with other people, like around January when he started doing podcast interviews, and he's having conversations. And he said, I'm still learning. He said, I'm still trying to understand what happened to me, and I'm learning new verbiage, new information still today, because I'm still trying to figure this out. So you don't know what you don't know. And all of us have been there. All of us has been there. I didn't know anything about any of these conversations that we're having until like my late 20s. And you don't know what you don't know. And I started learning about things that resonated with me, that felt good to me, that felt like truth to me, that I actually was like, this makes so much more sense than what I was either being taught or what I heard my friends were being taught through their religions or other family members, right? And I was like, you don't know what you don't know. So when you start opening up and learning new variations, again, it may not all resonate with you, and that's okay. Because I hear things and I'm like, not quite sure about that yet. Maybe later, maybe never. I don't know. But just right now, it's not fitting into my wheelhouse. So right now I'll just set that aside. And then, I've had it happen where later it starts coming up over and over and over. It's like Bev was talking about. If you start hearing something about the same topic over and over, now maybe it's time to look into it. Maybe it's time to open up to it. Maybe it's just time to learn about it before you step into that space of it. And all of it's great. It's learning, it's growing, it's having an understanding. It's just having an awareness of things that you weren't aware of before. And it doesn't mean it has to be part of your being or your belief system. It's just having an understanding of it so that we don't create that resistance toward each other, or that being divided, right? We want to be united. And in uniting, we have an understanding and compassion for each other instead of the resistance, the pushing against.
which is wonderful. And one of the things that I've been doing lately is when someone's saying something that I'm like, before I push against it, like, what? I don't believe that. And you know what I mean? Because sometimes I would hear stuff and it's like, I would ask myself, is this true?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I will definitely do, I'll ask if it rings true for me, because I feel like everything's true. Honestly, it's everybody has an experience. Everything, just because someone's saying something that I haven't had an experience with doesn't mean that it's not true. It just hasn't been in my experience, or it's not in my belief system. but it's being, like you said, it's being open. So we're not pushing against the collective anymore, which when you're not pushing against it, guess what? Flow. That's what happens. Flow.
Yeah.
Flow. Everything flows towards you. Everything, all the greatest things that you've ever even thought of, and even then more. So it's like, it's just being on this journey, and that's where I'm going right now. That's what feels good to me right now. And it's just evolving in that space for my evolution. But I also know that whatever we do for ourselves in that space, we're doing for all. It's not just for us. So when we take the time to meditate or acupuncture or Reiki or sit with your life coach and have different experiences, when you decide that you're tired of recycling the same old patterns, because let's face it, that's all in the collective consciousness too. That's all because it's all been experienced. And it's like, how can we make it better than that? Like, how can we experience more than that? And so again, we talk about all this stuff. Whatever we ask, when we experience things, it's creating an asking or a wanting for something else, or when I'm in a space of gratitude, it's creating a space for more gratitude to come in. It's more of a flow. And with all this being said, this group, and I'm learning to be more vulnerable too, and just say how I feel about things. I was kind of taking some things personal, even at the hospital. It's like, does she not want me to hold the baby? Taking it from that space, but that was my feelings, and I wasn't going to quash them anymore. I'm being vulnerable, and I'm learning to be my honest 100%. This is me, and I'm going to do whatever I can do. And I'm going to be, the more that I shed those layers of trying to hold things back. This morning, Freeman comes in. I'm like, look at my pants are like getting loose on me. And he said something, and I pulled my shirt up, and I see my skin on my stomach's all kind of looking all crinkly and stuff like that. And I immediately like covered it up, and I'm like, what in the fuck is your problem, Bev? Seriously, this is part of the body. This is part of the experience. If I'm gonna hide anything, I'm hiding everything. I'm blocking the flow. So it's like, I just told him, I said, well, I appreciate that you love me just the way that I am. I said, because this is where my body's at right now. Is it always going to be that way? Who knows? I don't care. I love this body. I'm going to honor this body. And I know that I haven't treated it very well always. But with that being said, I'm in a different space now, and I'm honoring it. And I just know that as soon as I went to hide, that was like hiding something, thinking it was something wrong with me, that there was something bad about me. And it's not true. It's not true.
And that immediately is that feminine energy popping up going, wait, this is part of your vehicle. This is where your spirit lives. This is to love, right?
Exactly.
Instead of just covering it up and going about your day, you took a moment and said, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because before I wouldn't have, then I would have automatically gone into my victim state about how horrible things are. That doesn't feel good. And I've done it enough. Thank you. I got the t-shirt.
And then the gym experience becomes a have to because my body doesn't look good, instead of a want to because I want to feel good. It's two different things.
Exactly. And then and that determines whether you're going to show up or not show up.
Right. Be whether it's a struggle or something you want to do.
And I'm recognizing, I'm going to the gym, and there's people that I haven't met before, and we're having conversations. She said, oh, I love to decipher dreams. Oh, really? So the next time I see her, I want to be like, hey, can I get your number? So that way that I can share people with you to help decipher dreams. If this is something, this is your passion, there's a reason for it. But this is a person I bumped into the gym, and I'm getting goosebumps through my whole body right now. So I know to have these conversations with her because that's her passion. She loves to decipher dreams. Super cool. I don't know what her tools are. I don't know where she's coming from when she's deciphering those dreams, because that means a lot too. But how would I know until I start expressing myself with her and finding out what does that look like? What does that feel like? But it's just amazing. It's just another opportunity for more growth, right? To not be so limited. One of the things I've recognized recently about dreams is when we have a dream of in our structures and our walls, like our loved ones and stuff like that are coming in, and we might be having an argument and stuff. It's not because they're doing something against you. That's a reflection of you with yourself. But it's just showing up as the other person. So there's not anything. It just depends on how you want to look at it, because from that space, there's a different growth. And then even one of them was saying that she had this dream for a long time. Her husband that had transitioned she felt like he wasn't supportive, or he was never there for her or whatever. So he would show up and he would be like, not, I don't know if she was feeling rejected in the dreams. And all of a sudden she sends me a message this morning because I said, well, what if that's just another part of you that you're just rejecting yourself? Or, if that was him, if that was you showing up in the dream, it was an opportunity. And then we talked about that. And then she said today, all of a sudden the dream was totally on the opposite side. She said, I don't know what all that means, but it was like he was accepting of her and she was chose her over anybody else, and like all these things. But to me, that still is the same thing, is deciding to choose myself over everybody else.
And here you have people talking to you about their dreams, and you meet a lady who loves to decipher dreams, right?
100%, 100%. So it's like, it's all these amazing things that are happening.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you get into that flow of things, right? Because it's not restricting anything, it's allowing the flow.
Right. That's so
It's
good.
just awesome.
We could keep talking and talking and talking.
I know this has gone by fast.
So true.
Like we just started.
But we just started. All right, my friends, I hope you got something out of today. There's so much energetically happening. And again, if you're feeling that emotional sensitivity, take the time to cry or to journal or do something to move that energy out of your body. It'd be super beneficial for you. And that's what matters first and foremost. We talk about collective energy. We talk about the masses, that what we do within ourselves affects thousands of people. It affects the collective consciousness. Don't take that on as your responsibility. Take yourself on as a responsibility and focus on yourself and nurture yourself more. And just by nurturing yourself, you are contributing to that shift of the feminine energy and raising that vibration and bringing more harmony into the masculine and feminine. And that's all. That's your part. That's all you need to do, is focus on you. So be sure to take the time to do that. And whatever way that looks like, just be sure it feels good. Whatever you're reading, what your conversations, how you're taking care of yourself, that it feels good. That's all we ask. Any final words?
Step out of your comfort zone. I feel like a lot of people can make excuses, and I was one of those persons that, it was easy to not go to the class, even though I know it would benefit me, or not go to the coaching, or not go to the Reiki session, or whatever, those times that we can take for ourselves. Step out of the comfort zone and just do it, and see how you feel afterwards.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, my friends, thanks for hanging out, allowing us to utilize your time and energy and focus. I hope you got something out of it. We'll be back next week and make it an amazing week.
Yes.
We'll see you later.
Bye.